Okay.
Hello, everybody. This is Activities Across Grade Levels Learning Language. So, 大家好, おはようございます and such. Valerie?
Bonjour tout le monde. Today is Activities Across Grade Levels Learning Languages.
That's right. We are excited to be sharing all kinds of ideas for you about possibilities for online learning at this kind of crazy time and what you can do related to language in terms of how this works. We'll pass out thank yous because that's always something that we start with, and it's just a good thing for life. And if that's news to you, then that's really important for you to have heard. Just saying. So all of the cool teachers in Fowler Unified, Susan's district, and thank you guys for joining us each week and in the recordings and just getting a sense of like what's possible. Let us know what you think. As always, same goes for my team up in Jerome, for all of the great folks at Fall City Academy and Jerome High School and Summit Elementary. Go Fish, right? And I hope that you are having like this amazing week, that you are kind of in that space of like, yes, and I want to finish the week with some cool ideas. And that's what we hope to provide you. Another thanks goes out to Richard. Richard Byrne and I every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, do a thing called Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff. And we have a lot of fun with it. It's a chance to learn about some cool things that are out there and also just get a lot of advice. We spend a lot of time answering questions about what people are experiencing as they try this online instruction thing. So we're happy to meet you. I want to introduce Val. Val, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Valerie Sun. I am a former dual immersion teacher for French. I am currently an educator and trainer where I help dual immersion programs and develop their programs. And I'm an EdTech specialist in helping teachers integrate technology into their classrooms. You can tweet at me at Mademoiselle Val Sunshine or check out empoweredconsulting.com for some of the materials that I provide.
And as always, we'll get those links in the chat. And as you watch this on the recording, if you've come to our webinars page and found the recording, you'll see just above it in the paragraph description, you're going to see a link to all of the things that we share, the links we share in the chat, and also the slides. So you get all of these things. We want to thank Val for stepping in for Susan, who is this wonderful human being who is focused on some other things this week. And so she said, let's get Val. And Val said, yeah. And I was like, yay. So there we go. My name is Rushton Hurley. I am a former high school teacher of Japanese language, a former principal, and a nonprofit guy. And it is always good fun to be sharing ideas, especially because this is a time where we need them, right? We need to apply that creativity that's like inside all of us so that we can reach that next kid. I run Next Vista for Learning. NextVista.org is a library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content, my own little attempt to save the world from ignorance, one creative video at a time. There you go. So what we're trying to do is keep the learning going, right? So when we think about what it means to have shifted from an in-person instructional model to an online instructional model, it seems like these are two completely different planets. And in effect, in some ways they are, but there are also a lot of things that carry. And so you're going to hear as we talk about these possibilities for language that at each grade level, when we talk about our youngest learners and our upper elementary and our middle and our high schoolers, we all have all these different ideas, but I'll tell you, no matter what level you teach, you will get something out of the other groups as well. So we hope that as we talk about these, you're getting plenty of ideas for how to get your students in kind of that next level of excitement about their learning. So in talking about language, we're talking about ESL, we're talking about learning Spanish, we're talking about learning any language at all. So whatever the language is that you're trying to learn, either because you're teaching it or because you are learning it or because you're like just curious, we've got things that we've brought together that we think can apply to any of them. So let's jump into these and let's start with the young learners. And Val, I'll pass it over to you for that group.
All right, so for young learners, the very first thing that we want to do is make sure we use authentic materials, whether it is a website from that language made for speakers of that language, and it could be any representative country of that language. So if you're a Spanish teacher, use something not just from Spain, but from Mexico, from Argentina, from Puerto Rico. For French teachers, use not just things from France, but from Senegal, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Canada, so that we can organically bring in the culture of the language into our classrooms. And for our kiddos, we definitely want to provide some sentence frames for them so that they could use their high frequency words and the vocabulary words that they're learning from the authentic materials in with these sentences so that they could also be repeated, and with repetition we learn that language. And next one is one of my favorites, is a step-by-step drawing where our students can learn the shapes and colors, and then we can integrate all of that together in a step-by-step drawing through recognizing national monuments, for example. So one of the best things is Les Minuscules, which is videos created by French animators that focuses on insects and insect lives. So we kind of learn the personality of these ladybugs, flies, spiders, and all of it is without text. There isn't any verbal language that goes on. So we can definitely go in and learn, we can introduce the vocabulary words for these insects and talk about the actions that they have, meanwhile talking about some of the social emotional learning aspects that is represented within the videos. Next, we have the step-by-step drawing, where here, if you can guess what the national monument is, that'd be really awesome. Rushton, you want to give it a guess?
See, I'm thinking that's the Arc de Triomphe.
Yes, it is the Arc de Triomphe. So we started simple, and we could do this easily across the screen, where you could say, I want, boys and girls, I want you to draw a rectangle. And then from this rectangle, we count, and then we say, on the first angle, you're going to draw a slanted line back. You give your descriptions, and they're able to follow along and learn the language of geometric shapes and colors at the same time. Next, we have these reading phones where our students, it's not very techy, but this is a very good thing to practice listening to their own sentence frames, listening to the words that they're saying as you have provided the sentences for them, or as they invent the sentences themselves with the sentence frames that you have given them. And then we also have ebook creations, where for this story is Why Does the Rabbit Have a Short Tail? We used Book Creator. So at first I've created the pages for them, but then slowly but surely my little kindergartners learned how to add in the videos and add in their voices and add in their pictures to support the theme that we are writing about, or the story that we have created as a class. And lastly, we can't forget about all of our artists and artist appreciation within the cultures, where once again, it is kind of like a step-by-step drawing, but not really, because we look at items from different perspectives. Here we have Cézanne's apples. So we talked about how apples come in all sorts of different colors. And even on one apple, it's not just red. We have some yellow and green. So then it's a chance for them to talk about perspective as well, drawing the apples from looking from the top, from looking at the side. And it's something that could also be accomplished across the screen.
Very cool. And Val, when we were talking about this at one point, you were mentioning that the ebook creation, you had students create their own ABC book, like in a digital book. Is that right?
Yes, that is true. So ebooks don't just have to be stories. They could also be based on high frequency words. My kindergartner class, we actually had letters and sounds for we had a book for every single letter and sound. The complex sounds like CH or OU. So I ended up giving my students the choice to say, ooh, what word starts with the letter C or has the sound oo? And then they went and found pictures for the words that they were thinking about, put in the image, recorded their sentence, and typed in their sentence either via speech to text, or they actually typed it in for those who knew how to write sentences already.
Very, very cool project. All right, and let's shift to the upper elementary and what we can do at this time with that group.
So with the upper elementary students, we could take a look at creating GIFs or GIFies, which are moving video, like a short video picture. And students could choose whichever video they would like, a 3-second video that gets repeated on the event or story that they're talking about. One of the really awesome things is Flipgrid's Grid Pals to connect with other students who are also learning the language or who are from that country that speaks the language. They could also practice tongue twisters or famous poetry to record into Flipgrid to share with their classmates and your teachers, or with their parents, or with a larger audience. And lastly, exploring cultural expressions and idioms to use them appropriately. So for example, here we have Phoebe and Joey practicing the Je m'appelle and how to introduce themselves. They can choose this one when they're learning to present themselves, or they could find a different context in where is a way when French has been really butchered. You know, all sorts of different contexts that you can choose to create GIFs in. On the bottom, we have some poetry practice on Flipgrid. So during the Chinese Tang Dynasty, that is when a lot of poetry was created, and they could practice saying the poems into Flipgrid and then recording it and then perfecting it, adding some really cool effects behind it. And the French are also famous for their poems and memorizing poems as well. Next, we have some tongue twister practice, and they have these Flipgrid challenges actually, where you can challenge your students to say the tongue twisters as quickly as possible within the 30 seconds, 15 seconds, or 1 minute that you have given them, or within maybe saying it 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. And I've provided some links for you for Chinese tongue twisters, French tongue twisters, and Spanish tongue twisters. With Flipgrid up at top, that is just a quick search for the number of Flipgrid grid pals available for those who speak Chinese. So you can easily do a Flipgrid grid pals search, and then with each little plus, you can click on them and see what grade level they teach, and see if you could connect with them. And all of these are educators who are willing to connect with other classrooms. So how cool would it be to connect your upper elementary students with students from a different classroom across the world during this kind of crazy time to talk about their own experiences? And lastly, we have some regional expressions, and this link actually takes you to TV5 Monde, which is a grand resource for all French teachers, where they talk about different expressions from various Francophone countries. So for this one, it's actually a Belgian expression for going to a party.
Very, very cool. You know, when I look at these, you know, and I think about the different things that are out there, and I think, wow, you know, that's so fun. You know, how do I get to it? Reminder to everybody that you've got 2 paths to get there. One is that if you click on the slides on our webinars page, you'll get all these slides, and you can click on any of these links that are on the page. Second is if you click on the document with all the links, you can follow it from there as well. So just whether you're a little more visual or a little more textual, you can go either way on that front. Let's talk a little bit about middle schoolers. All right, so now we're up in the intellectual piece of it a bit, but no less the enthusiasm. Because if what we're going to do is get a kid interested in a language, we have to make sure that that kid begins to experience the fun of trying stuff out. It does or doesn't work, but we all smile and we kind of have fun with it. Once we can get kids past being afraid of making mistakes, because if a language class is built totally around you got that wrong, you know, then we'll teach kids never to try speaking in the language, right? So we want to be in a space where we're giving them a chance to try lots and lots of different things. So one thing you can do, especially at this time, is use simple audio tools to get students to try out these simple conversations. And they can be really, really simple, you know. How much is the Coca-Cola, right? The Coca-Cola is 140 yen. Oh, I'll take that, please, right? You know, and so they learn to say, okay, I'm going to be one voice for one of them and one voice for the other. And learning that they have multiple voices can be really good for them as well as they develop their confidence in how they speak. So they learn to do this when they're the other person, right? Additionally, you can find passages that you want them to read. Now, this could be from a textbook. You could find it via all sorts of different tools that are out there that have all sorts of authentic language in it, you know, whether it's a cultural site, news site, you know, language learning sites that have got some cool stuff on them, all of those. And there are lots of different tools that allow a kid to record him or herself saying the passage as they go, right? And so they could be sitting there reading it, right? And recording themselves. So in terms of assessment, you know, obviously if you switched from in-person to online, you're kind of like, well, how does assessment going to work? This is a great way to do it, because the kid is actually going to the trouble of having to read it through and read it as smoothly as possible. And the more they practice, which is of course the key to learning a language, the better they'll be able to do. And you keep encouraging them. You know, maybe it's not just like, you know, everything comes down to one time they do it. It's like, all right, we're going to start here and you're going to give it a shot and you're going to try it with each other and you're going to give each other advice. And you're going to and one piece of the assignment is to mark down like a really good piece of advice you got from somebody else in the class. You know, that's just like a piece of it, so that they're getting more and more practice in as they go. And then they can just write stories, right? So, you know, we were talking a little earlier about these ABC books and that you create using digital book creator stuff. Book Creator itself is a tool that allows you to do this really, really easily. And you can imagine the kinds of stories that kids would put together. So maybe what they're doing is telling about a place they'd like to go. They want to go to Madrid, you know, and so they're all excited about that, right? Woo, you know, yo quiero ir a Madrid, you know, whatever it is. All right. Or maybe what they want to do is tell about their school. And so they have a story about somebody who goes through their school day, and they've taken pictures at the school. You know, don't go to the school and do it at the moment, right? If you're in shelter in place, but you get the idea. You know, maybe they're drawing these things as we go as well. And not only can they write out the text next to a drawing or a picture, but they can record themselves saying it. So one of the things Book Creator allows you to do, either in video with webcam or just audio, is to right then and there in the tool be able to say, boop, all right, so this is my story about young Marco, right? And you go from there. So those are good things to do. Screencastify is another good tool for that. You know, any kind of screencasting tool where you put slides together and you want to make a video out of that, easy to do. I hope you'll take a look at SpeakPipe. And for you teachers of younger kids, SpeakPipe is a tool that requires no account, which is a beautiful thing, right? So what it is you just click on that green button that says start recording, you record, you click stop, and you've got it. Now what happens next is it says, you know, do you want to listen to it? And if you don't like it, re-record or save. And then it says, what's your name? But it's optional. You don't have to include it. And then you say, you know, done. And then boom, it processes and gives you a link. And that link will be something that you can click on and listen to the kid, you know, whatever it is. Now, in return for no account, these things actually only last on the servers for about 3 months, but you can download them as MP3s if you wish. Let's go to high school. So now we're really beginning to push these kids to try to like develop their sentences, and just like learning language at any level, we're trying to take the way we express things up a notch and a notch and a notch and a notch, right? So you have this sentence, right? The flowers are pretty, right? The flowers blooming outside are pretty. The flowers blooming outside are more beautiful than any I've ever seen. You're trying to bring those sentences up as you go. So we're trying to do the same thing here, where you start by choosing any given thing. Now, we're always trying to capture kids' attention so that they really remember it. There's this moment where they connect something they've experienced to something they're learning with the language. Now, clearly, anytime you can do this in the target language, that's great. But let's say, for example, that you don't have target language materials, videos that you know will allow them to kind of have this moment. One of the things you can do is take a video that's in their language and ask them to summarize it in the target language. And we've got a link in the chat for Great Big Story. And oh man, there's so many Great Big Story videos out there. If you haven't taken a look there goes your weekend, because it is beautiful, beautiful stuff. And you know, kids will remember these stories, and because they're remembering the stories, the kind of language you're getting them to use as a part of trying to describe them might be all the more easily recalled as they go forward. Clearly, there's something very cool about being able to handle like news as well in a language. And if you are working with a language for which there are lots of cognates, all the better, because you can read about, you know, revolution and you're like, oh, it's revolution, no problem. You know, whereas if you're talking Japanese, you know, meikaku, like, that's revolution? Oh, okay. You know, I mean, whatever it may be, right? But there are possibilities in any language. So even if you're just kind of zeroing in on a headline or the first paragraph, you know, something like that in a story, get in there and take a look and see what they can do. If they begin to see that they can go to a site and get the idea, two good things are coming from that. First of all, it's not that they have to understand every last word, that they look at it and get the idea, and that's pushing them in the right direction. That's a moment of confidence for them, right? That's great. And then second, of course, you're using authentic materials, which is awesome to have them in that space of like, that's something I can do. And you say, look, 2 weeks ago, you wouldn't have been able to figure this out at all. Now you can. What will you be able to do 2 weeks from now, right? So those kinds of questions are great. And then, of course, you can also just kind of leave the system behind completely and jump on Duolingo, right? Which is a matter of like pulling out this bad boy, taking the free app and just choosing any language you want to start learning, whether it's Italian or Hindi or Arabic or whatever it might be, or even Klingon, you know, they do those kinds of things. And just having some fun with it, because it gamifies it. You know, gamification is something that is taken very seriously in ed tech circles, because it's about motivation. How do we incentivize kids pushing themselves to that next level, as opposed to simply saying your grade depends on it, which is only so interesting to kids in the just saying department. I did a search on the last page about list of French language news sites, for example, in Google, and anything like that. List of Spanish news sites, a list of Italian news sites, list of Swahili news sites, where you're looking for the different possibilities for where you can find some authentic material. That's what that bottom picture is about. And of course, the great big story there, grandmas and sea snakes. How much cooler could that be? All right. So as we like to do, we like to finish. We'll just point you to a couple of extra resources if you're kind of in that overachiever mode and you're like, oh, I want to look at more tools. All right, fine. There's a thing out there called the free reading program. If you are learning English or teaching English and what you want is something that has a lot of little stuff, kind of games and phonics-based things and very simple things, it's there and it's free. Clearly, if they've named it the free reading program, it would be lame to charge for it. So that's a good thing to do. Take a look at that. There's Newsela and Rivet, which are both good tools for having Lexile specific readings. So there's an article and here it is at really simple English. Here it is at like the next level up and the next level up, and the next level up. And sometimes you can even get kids who are learning a language like English or Spanish in Newsela to look at the two different versions and say, what are the differences in the opening paragraphs and what do we learn from those? Those can be really important moments for conceptualizing what it is to look at complexities in a sentence and using a comparison that they've already kind of gone to the trouble of creating for you, making that part of the lesson. Val, tell us about those last two.
So the Occidental College California World Language Project is created for language teachers. So we just launched this website filled with all sorts of tools to work on the 3 different modes of communication. So we have interpretive communication, interpersonal communication, and presentational communication, which all falls under ACTFL's World Language Standards as well, or World Readiness Standards. So take a look at that to explore the different tools that are there, tech tools that you can use to work on all of these competencies. And the last link is TV5 Monde for the French teachers, because it just has a wealth of information, including 2 to 4 minute videos with all the materials already prepared for you that you can launch with your students so that they can explore these authentic resources and hear French speakers speak.
Great stuff. Now we're winding down, so let me point you to some philosophical pieces, the philosophical pieces, such as we think about what we're doing, we think about these different tools and activities. Think about tools and activities on a spectrum, right? There is a tool, and the question becomes, what activities are possible with that tool? And then there's the activity, and what tools might be useful for that? And the kinds of discussions you have with colleagues about using tech effectively in this space really come down to moving along that spectrum between tools and activities and talking about ideas that way. Because if we're doing that well, we're caring for our students. That's our number one job. I saw this beautiful tweet late last night, where it was a piece from Chicago, and it was talking about how this parent had said, oh, my kid just kind of shut down last night. He just kind of shut down. And this morning, her teacher came and drove the 20 minutes to come over to our house and sit in the driveway while the kid's sitting, like on the sidewalk, and there she is, like reading a story to the kid, and the parents like, this teacher has 5 kids at home, and she came over. That's who we are, right? That's who we are as teachers. If we're caring for the kids and we're caring for their learning, we're probably doing it because we're caring for ourselves, right? We have to be the people who are ready to be creative at any given moment. We can help kids kind of get in that space of learning things in ways that maybe they haven't before. Now, several invitations for you that you will find as we go forward. First of all, actually, I see that the sun is now shining off the car, and I got these cool lines on my face. I hope that's exciting for you. Probably not. At any rate, some other things that might actually be exciting are the things that you find in the newsletter. We hope you'll sign up for it. You'll see among the links the April newsletter and then also the sign up. Give that a look. We have 2 video contests going on right now on creative ways of describing any given thing one might encounter in school, and then also for service to others, so 2 minutes or less, people who are making life better for others. I have a blog called Inspiring Improvement. Please give that a look. I publish it not regularly, but on a whim. So there you go. And then I've written books on how to get better as a teacher, how to help your school become a better place for everybody. And the most recent book, Technology, Teamwork, and Excellence from NCEA. We hope that you'll give these a look. And if you do a little book study with your staff, just let me know. I'm happy to connect with you and talk to you about it. Like, what do you charge for that? You bought some books, it's free. Wow, you're so nice. Happy to help. So there you go. So if you have some questions, stick around. As we always do after the recording, we'll talk with the people who have joined us for the recording. You know, they've been like putting things in the chat as we go as well. And we love being able to do that. But it is about that time. We always try to run about a half hour. And so we'll wind down. Val, go ahead and give us some final thoughts there.
Well, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Susan, for letting me sit in today. Thank you, Rushton, for letting me sit in. If you've got any questions with the early kiddos or the younger elementary language learners, you could definitely contact me or contact me with any other information you have about the tools that I've presented. You could check out the website. You could tweet at me if you'd like. That works too. You can reach me and I respond.
Me too. You can write me. The best way to do that for me is actually via email. I mean, I am on the Twitters, all right, at Rushton H, and you're free to contact me that way. I figured out eventually that people did that. I do put in a lot, you know, related to things that I run across that I think are inspiring in some way, and I hope that that's useful. But email, I answer every email I get. Eventually, actually, is the important adverb in that sentence. So feel free to reach out if you've got things that you're like, you know, I've got these questions about X, Y, or Z. Happy to help. My little nonprofit is built to help you out. And so, you know, if you're like, no, I will ignore that opportunity, well, that's on you. So just saying. So thank you again for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed the recording. We hope you will go to nextvista.org and see the link there on the front page to all of the different webinars we got going. And if you click on that webinars link on that page, you can get to where there are recordings of everything we've done, all the different activities across grade level shows, the 2 EdTech Guys shows, the other things we've put together. Let us know if there's anything there that you need. And we thank you for joining us. And we hope that over the course of the weekend, you will kind of get in that space where you're like, you know, just what I needed to like get reignited for the coming week and inspire that next kid. Make it happen.